Well, hello, everyone. This is Wilson Cole with Adams, Evans, and Ross, and I am joined by our general counsel and lovely daughter, Samantha. Samantha, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Doing fine, doing fine. Samantha, one thing I want to talk about, we've been talking with our engineering clients, and some of them were complaining about just companies are paying them slow. And, one of the things that I've told our clients for the last 30 years, a lot of times companies pay you slow. They pay you slow because you trained them to pay you slow. So I wanted to make 3 suggestions on making sure that companies get paid. One of my, or actually 2 of my suggestions are going to be kind of across the board, whether it's corporate or smaller clients. Yours is how to make sure you get paid, especially with those smaller, more riskier clients from a legal standpoint. But one of the things that I want everybody to do is, if whatever software that you're utilizing, the number one thing to speed up cash flow is get rid of net 30-day terms, get rid of 10-day terms. Stop putting that on your invoice, because if you have 30-day terms, is it from the date that you sent the invoice out, the date that they get it, the date that they enter it into their system? And also 30 days really means 45 days. If you want to instantly speed up your cash flow, put a specific date on it. So if today is October 4th and you have net 10-day terms, you want to put due on October 14th. What that's going to do is twofold. Number one, as they put it into their system, whether they're utilizing some type of digital payable where they're entering into a computer, then they're going to put that specific date, and it's going to show past due when they pull up the reports. If they're just putting it into the old style folder where their wife or themselves or their bookkeeper is going to go through and pay invoices, they start dating them and adjusting them the way that those dates come in. That one thing will literally cut in half, on average, the amount of days that you have outstanding invoices. Now, Samantha, that works well with small companies. That works well with large companies. A lot of our clients, if they're dealing with a large publicly traded company or a 30-year-old company or a multi-billion-dollar company, that's not going to work. But if they are dealing with a smaller company that's maybe been in business less than 2 to 4 years, you have one recommendation that I think is key. Tell us about it.
Get a personal guarantee, whether it's in your terms and conditions, or better yet, in a separate document, or at least a separate signature, so that this debt, if something happens to the company or the company doesn't pay it, the person who signed it, hopefully C-level officer or something along those lines, is then responsible for the debt should something happen to the company or should they not pay it. This necessarily gives you that extra layer of defense if you have to sue on it, but will also prioritize the debt for the company. Because they're going to want to pay and get stuff off the books that could fall onto them.
Yep.
And let everybody else fall to the wayside.
Technically, they're not supposed to do that, but when and I agree with you 100%. I agree with you 100%. Somebody has to be thrown into bankruptcy, and quite frankly, small businesses, large companies go bankrupt. Small businesses just cease to exist, leave the shell corporation there to be dissolved in a decade or so from whatever Secretary of State. But that's one of the things that is key. Big businesses that have assets go bankrupt. Small companies that have no assets, there's no reason for them to go bankrupt because there's no liquidation that needs to be applied. And that is where the abuse comes in. And if they personally guarantee it, chances are they're going to make sure that you get paid first. And so
and also what I've seen, and this is going to sound horrible, but if you're dealing with a company and they're paying and there's a personal guarantee, they want to get it paid before it goes to suit, because they don't want to have to explain to their spouse why they just got sued.
Well, that's true. And then also, if they get sued corporately, it doesn't show up on their personal credit bureau. If you get sued personally, and that person is in essence, you're co-signing for the company.
Yeah.
Now, one of the cautions, I have a lot of clients say, well, Wilson, client's just not going to sign the personal guarantee. Okay, if you're dealing with a company that is less than 5 years old, they have an 80% chance of going out of business. And typically, it's really a lot closer to 80% go out of business within the first 3 years. And the survivors don't do much better over the next additional 5 years over that. So an 8-year period, an additional 80% of them will go out of business. So if the principal of that company is not willing to sign a personal guarantee and guarantee that debt, why on heck would you be willing to accept it? Now, something, Sam, that you talked about, just to be clear, you're talking about C-level executives, because we have had where the bookkeeper didn't realize what she was signing. And if she signs it, technically the bookkeeper just guaranteed it, but sometimes that can get kicked out because they didn't know what they were signing. Kind of explain, personally, I'd want to see the owner, but if they're a corporation, who are some of those folks that can sign for it?
CEO, CFO, controller. Not a bookkeeper, but a controller. General counsel. I have seen where a general counsel signed it and then wanted to argue they didn't know what they were signing. That one created its own series of irony for me and the litigating attorney when we were going through litigation on that one. But I'd want to see, president of the company or owner or CEO, CFO, any of the people that have a financial interest in the company surviving.
Okay. So step number one that I talked about was put a specific date. Step number two, Samantha talked about with personal guarantees with the small and mid-sized companies. The third one you can do with anyone, and that is create a sequence, and it doesn't have to be abusive. It doesn't have to be over the top, but create a sequence of collection letters or postcards that you can stick in with statements of account. One of the things that will help you get paid more than anything else is to let your debtor know that you know they're behind. And one of the things that I would recommend and what other clients have done is they'll create, if they're 7 to 10 days past due, they send out a letter or a postcard in an invoice that says, hey, our terms are net 10, you're now a week past due, will you let us know when it's going to be paid? And that one you can, even if you're going to color code them, make that one green. Then you have the second one that would go out about 10 days, 2 weeks later, that's maybe yellow color coded, and it basically says, hey, we sent you out a notice, you're past due, if there's a problem, let me know, call me at such and such. Now, somewhere to use at the 30 to 45 day mark, and you can even send it out on red paper, and it basically says, hey, you're now significantly past due. Please overnight a check, call me immediately. It's that progression and a sense of urgency. Those three things will speed up cash flow more than anything else. Using a specific date, using personal guarantees when applicable, and then create some type of collection letter series for your company, because a lot of smaller companies, they may have the assistant following up on past dues, where sometimes people are a little reluctant to make those calls. If you set up a system to where you just press a button, and whether it's email, whether it's print, that those letters go out automatically. They always go out where the letters don't always get called. But those are the three steps to speed up your engineering receivables. Samantha, anything you want to add before we wrap up?
I think that's it.
Well, outstanding. Thank you, guys. We'll see you next week.